Welcome to the regular monthly Maths and English webinar. However, in true BBC style, we have a change to our planned programme. In the light of the unprecedented situation that the COVID-19 virus has caused, City and Guilds have been working to support our centres and providers with their delivery of Maths and English programmes in these unique circumstances. This is Amanda Kelly, Industry Manager for Maths, English and Employability, and Paul Seeney and Catherine Cooper, the technical advisors, are also joining us from across the country. And we thought we would take the opportunity of this webinar slot to update you with our current position. If you haven't listened in to one of these webinars before, then welcome. This is part of a series of webinars where we explore the Maths and English landscape, not just for functional skills, but we have a different focus each month. The sessions are recorded and the recording will be available from the Maths and English Resource Hub. And don't forget, sign up for email alerts. You'll need to visit the Email Preference Centre and tell us which topics you would like to hear about. Before we get going, this is just a heads up about 3 things in case you missed them. Firstly, we are delighted to announce that we have launched a new version of the Centre Analytics tool, which went live at the beginning of March. Unlike the previous version, it can now be used to access performance data from paper functional skills exams, in addition to those delivered on screen through the Evolve system. There are some differences in the way the information about paper versus on-screen results are presented. For example, for paper-delivered exams, the performance codes are used to highlight relative strengths or weaknesses and will show whether a candidate scored more or less than 50% of the available marks for each reportable group of subject content statements. Crucially though, that information can now be accessed electronically via the Centre Analytics tool rather than going hunting for it on the paper notification of candidates' results statements. The other big change is that it's now possible to look up an individual candidate's raw marks in their paper exams. Again, it's reported in a different format from the Evolve score reports, which give a percentage. This will show an actual mark, like 13 out of 18. One other really important point about Centre Analytics is that if your centre don't currently use the Evolve system for any on-screen exams, then you will need to complete a form to request access to Centre Analytics. This form is available from the 4748 qualification page. We're planning a special webinar and demonstration of the new version of Centre Analytics, so look out for that. The other 2 bits of news is that we are continuing to add more sample functional skills assessments to the qualifications page. There are now 3 sets for English reading and writing at level 1 and 2, and a 3rd set will be coming along for maths. We're still working to get these added to Open Assess, but they should be still there soon. In both cases, a 4th set of samples has also been commissioned, and we're adding some more entry-level samples across both subject areas. And while we had been continuing to organise regional networks, for obvious reasons, we're going to be putting these on hold for now, although we are looking at other ways in which we can bring practitioners together to share ideas. As you know, the current situation is changing on a daily basis, so this is just an outline of our current position, and as things change we will give further updates through our dedicated page on the website and email alerts. But the plan is for this session to give you an outline of where we are today for each of the areas listed here. So, looking at qualifications in turn, for Essential Skills Wales, City and Guilds, together with the other awarding bodies that make up the Asset Management Group, are in discussion with Qualification Wales to confirm what flexibilities can be extended to the assessments within the Essential Skills suite. We will issue an update once the position is clear, and we expect this to be soon. For Essential Skills Northern Ireland, we are talking to SEA, who are the regulators, to see what flexibility and advice can be extended for this Essential Skills suite, and we hope to be able to update on this position shortly. Level 3 certificate in using and applying mathematics, otherwise known as core maths. The summer exam session has been cancelled. We will be following the processes that will be prescribed for us by the Department of Education and Ofqual, which will define the details around assessment for the learners who were due to take these exams. We're talking directly to our centres and will update them as soon as the position is clear. Now on to functional skills. Let's look at the legacy functional skills qualification first, and just to confirm, what we're telling you here is our current position and it may be changed. As of today, the last certification date is still the 31st of August 2020. However, we are currently discussing with Ofqual whether there is any flexibility in the end date for all levels of the legacy functional skills qualifications. Once a decision is made, then we will update you immediately with any revised assessment end dates. With the unpredictability of the current situation, you may find yourself in a position when a booked functional skills exam needs to be moved to accommodate the availability of the candidate or an invigilator. We've updated our requirements around changing the dates of functional skills exams at Level 1 and Level 2. For paper-based, we currently offer the flexibility of moving the exam 5 days either side of the original planned date. During this period, we will allow the exam to be moved to a new date 10 days either side of the original exam date that was booked, and it will not be necessary to inform City and Guilds of this change. For on-screen, we currently allow the flexibility to move the exam to a new date 10 days either side of the original date already, and this will remain unchanged. Again, while we are operating in unusual circumstances, we do not require you to inform City and Guilds of the change in day or time. In recognition that with the lockdown it may not be possible to access an employer's workplace, we've outlined the rules regarding the invigilation of functional skills exams by employers. It is possible for an employer to invigilate an on-screen 4748 functional skills exam, subject to the following requirements being met. Any invigilator must be fully briefed on the requirements of the Functional Skills Instructions for Conducting Exams document, otherwise known as the ICE. City and Guilds has a number of requirements for downloading software and test and examination materials, and these must all be met. Some of them will need to be in place ahead of the test and examination timing. Guidance for what is the requirements can be found on these dedicated Evolve familiarisation pages. There are a number of areas where there is no flexibility for the delivery of a functional skills exam. Currently, we cannot support the delivery of paper-based exams in an employer's workplace unless they are already the approved assessment centre. Learners are not permitted to take an external examination paper home, and a candidate cannot complete an examination without a centre approved invigilator being present. Quality assurance during this time. Following UK Government advice, we've taken the decision to suspend, until further notice, all quality assurance visits to our centres and providers, and this includes EQA visits and examination audits. External quality assurance activity will be moved to a remote activity where our centre or provider remains open. What do we do with the booked tests and question papers once they've been completed or when they need returning? Let's look at legacy functional skills first. If paper-based functional skills exams have already been taken, but it's not possible to return the completed question papers, then they must be stored securely and you must notify City and Guilds by emailing openbookings@cityandguilds.com. If the tests have been booked and you've received the question papers but now cannot carry out the examination, then the following procedure must be followed. You must email openbookings@cityandguilds.com and let them know. You need to attach a scanned copy of the invigilation certificates. They must not be ticked or signed, and they must be password protected. And in the email you need to confirm that you have securely destroyed the question papers. Please provide the password to the invigilation certificate in a separate email to comply with the GDPR rules. We will of course cancel the bookings and provide a credit, and you should ensure that you securely destroy the question papers. The process around returning papers for reformed functional skills 4748 is slightly different. If the paper-based functional skills exam has already been sat, but it's not possible to return the completed question papers, then again these must be stored securely and City and Guilds must be notified by emailing the open bookings address. If on the other hand, where the test has been booked and you've received the papers but now can no longer carry out the examination, then you will need to email open bookings and provide a scanned and password protected invigilation certificate, but the papers must be returned to City and Guilds at the address shown on this slide. Again, where the GDPR rules apply because of the names of the candidates, then you need to password protect the invigilation certificate and provide the password in a separate email. We will cancel the bookings and provide a credit, but the reformed functional skills papers have to be returned to us. In the light of current circumstances, we are introducing guidance for the remote assessment for speaking, listening and communicating, and speaking and listening for functional skills and ESOL. This guidance applies with immediate effect and will continue until further notice. All speaking and listening assessments must take place with an assessor or another responsible member of staff observing. Candidates cannot do this on their own. There are a variety of tools that are available to support remote speaking, listening and communicating, such as Skype, Teams, Google Hangouts or Zoom, and if these are used, the assessments should be recorded. If you wish to use a different platform or a different method of carrying out a remote assessment, please contact us on fsreform@cityandguilds.com so that we can understand your requirements. If the assessor cannot observe the assessment as it's taking place in person, there must be an appropriate video recording on which the assessment decisions can be based. We are currently updating our handbook to provide details around this remote assessment process. For this speaking and listening remote assessment, the assessor does not need to be in the same room as the candidate or other participants. However, in all cases, the centre must be able to meet the requirements of the assessment and verify all of the candidates' identities. There should be video or audio assessment evidence of each assessment, and records must be kept to show which assessments were completed remotely. Your EQA should be informed, and it may be a requirement that they join these remote activities to observe live assessment and assessment marking taking place. At all times, the assessor must be confident about the identity of every candidate that completes an assessment. And if there is any suspicion that a candidate has taken an assessment in the place of another candidate, this must be reported to City and Guilds immediately as a potential malpractice. This slide gives some advice and guidance about using video or audio evidence and outlines the expectations of what should be included or used. It's important to securely store all recordings as soon as practically possible, and these recordings should be reviewed to make sure that they are clear and that the voices of the candidates and the assessor are clearly audible throughout the assessment. We suggest that the file names for the recordings are given as the centre name and number, and include candidate enrolment numbers as well as the level and the assessment activity, such as level 1 group discussion, so that if the EQA is sampling, you will be able to identify the correct recording for that particular candidate. The following information needs to be included in every recording: the centre name, the centre number, the name of the assessor, the date the activity is taking place, the type of assessment that's taking place, for example, level 1 group discussion, the names and candidate numbers of any candidates being assessed, and also the names of any participants who are not being assessed. It's useful to include the location of the participants. For example, are they in the workplace or at home? We don't need specific details, just a general idea. You also need to include the time that the assessment begins and at the end the time that it finishes. The idea is that the activity in the recording should be continuous, but please make note of any unexpected breaks during the recording. Remote assessment for ESOL speaking and listening is also being covered by these new temporary guidelines. The acceptance of remote assessment of speaking and listening has been extended to the ESOL suite of qualifications during this period from immediate effect until further notice. Centres will need to make sure that all speaking and listening assessments are taken place with either the assessor or another responsible member of staff observing. And in all cases, the centre must be able to meet the requirements of the assessment while being able to verify all the candidates' identity. You must have video or audio evidence of each assessment and keep records on which assessments were completed remotely. You need to inform your EQA, who may wish to join these remote activities, to observe live assessment and assessment marking take place. The guidelines for video or audio evidence for ESOL remote speaking and listening are the same as those that were outlined earlier for functional skills. The only difference here is that the assessor needs to give both the name of the assessor and the interlocutor as part of the brief. And as this webinar draws to a close, a little bit of optimistic news. We would like to support teachers who are delivering remote online teaching and learning. And to that end, we would like to start to facilitate a series of open sessions where practitioners can share ideas and good practice around teaching and learning remotely and support each other during these challenging times. Watch out for our live and recorded teach meets and our how-to sessions. But what else can we do to help? We're always open to new ideas, and we welcome ideas from our centres about what they need to support them. So it just remains to say thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions around the information supplied here, we have a dedicated web page for functional skills during the COVID-19 experience. Or if you have a particular question, please email centresupport@cityandguilds.com. We collate your questions and use those to provide FAQs and further information. In the meantime, please follow the hashtag on social media or follow myself, Paul or Catherine on Twitter, where we're always happy to hear from you.